Hi, you guys. So I have been a part of the YouTube community as a voyeur since 2007. I've watched, I don't know, countless numbers of videos on different topics, and I never felt um, the real need to post a video because I wasn't sure of what I could offer to the community that wasn't already out there. But now, as a health coach and an author, what I'm finding is people still need a lot of information and tips as it relates to weight loss. So I thought I would share three of the top tips that helped me and some of the tips that I've written about. So here we go. Um, on the thumbnail where you see the picture, my before picture, that was about 7 years ago at my god sister's wedding. And it wasn't until I saw the pictures from her wedding that I realized I had actually blown up. I weighed on that picture the same amount that I weighed the day I went into labor with my son. So, and then the other picture, my after picture, that's a more recent picture. Um, and the weight difference there is 50 pounds. I lost the weight and have maintained it for at least the last 5 years. And again, these are just my top three tips. So, number three was having a food strategy. So, everybody has a food strategy. We all know that when you're dieting. Some people meal prep, some people do, some of the commercial diets like Weight Watchers or Nutrisystem. Some people do the ketogenic diet or become vegan or whatever the diet strategy is. But what I find to be really helpful is to also have a fallback strategy because I know for me, as with likely a lot of dieters, um, we make unrealistic goals for ourselves or we change reality in our minds. So I know I would think like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to my sister's birthday dinner and I'm just going to order a salad and no dressing. I'm going to get lemon juice on the side and I'll be fine, right? And then I get to the party and everyone else is eating whatever they want to eat. Um, and it's likely at a restaurant that I love. And so then the appetizers come, and I'm just going to have a little bit of an appetizer and then go to my salad. And then after I've indulged in the appetizers, then all of a sudden the whole meal is just out of the way. It's like, forget it. I've messed up. In my mind, I've messed up. So now I'm just going to just do what I want to do and have what I want to have, and then the next thing I know, it's appetizers, and then a poor meal, and then the dessert, and then the cake that was brought in after the dessert, and the coffee, and the wine, and the meal just kind of gets out of hand. So for me, what I realized was having a cheat day or making unrealistic goals for myself was never going to work because that just gave me an excuse to say, I have to start all over, right? That didn't work. So then the day after the party, I'm like, well, I messed up last night. I might as well have the breakfast I want, and then I'll get back on track at lunch. So what I find, which is a good tip to help out with this, is to have a fallback strategy. So let's say, for example, your strategy is to be vegan, right? If that is a strategy to gain health and to lose weight, that's great. And then if you're going to go out to dinner, maybe you say, okay, so tonight I'm going to be vegan with the exception of I will have dessert and I will have appetizers as an example. Or one thing that worked for me when I was doing my weight loss journey was to say I'm going to eat ketogenic for an evening. So I'm not a big meat person. I do like at the time I really liked steak. So if I would go out, I would say, okay, I'm gonna eat, low carb, even though that's far off from my whole vegan plan. I would go, no carb or very low carb for the evening, which would mean that I could have a steak and I could have vegetables and, if everyone else was having like artichoke and spinach dip, I could have some of that, but I couldn't have chips. I would, eat it with celery as an example. So for appetizer, I may have some of that dip with the celery. For dinner, I would have a steak with, a vegetable or a Caesar side salad, no croutons. And then when the dessert would come, I would get coffee and add creamer and, Splenda or stevia versus actually having the dessert. So what that did for me was gave me a night of quote unquote freedom from whatever my rules were to lose the weight, but didn't take me so off course to where I was gaining weight or retaining more water than usual. So the next morning, it was easy for me to say, like, okay, that was a part of my plan. I did that. It was that evening. And then the next day, go back to what my strategy was. And that worked out for me. So that's my number 3 topic. My number 3 tip is to actually have your strategy, your food eating strategy, but to also have a backup strategy just for those special occasions so that you're not completely thrown off. My number 2 tip is to make a commitment. So I know that we all say, okay, we made a commitment because we've gone on a plan or we've gone on a diet, but that is not what I mean. What I mean is, we make commitments to our families, we make commitments to our friends, we make commitments to our children, and we don't break those. And 9 times out of 10, the reason why we don't break them is because we actually make them. So it's one thing to say, I'm going on a diet on Monday and I'm going to stick to this diet, right? I'm committed to this diet. That's one thing. But it's another thing to have very specific, smaller commitments that you make to yourself throughout your journey. So, for example, right now, I have a water commitment for myself. That's something that I'm not sure why. It's hard for me to make sure that I'm staying on my water intake. So I've decided to make a commitment to myself. And in making that commitment, I remind myself every morning and every evening of my commitment. Now, everybody's going to have a different need to remind themselves. For me, I actually have to have a reminder that says, in the morning, okay, it's time to start, drinking your water. And so I'll try to get 16 ounces in before I even have breakfast. And then in the evening, I review how much water did I have. If I did not meet my commitment, I need to meet my commitment before I go to bed. And I meditate on that concept. So this is my commitment to myself. I am going to do it. It's not something big. It's not something ridiculous. It's not depriving. And so when I make those small commitments to myself, if I break those commitments, then I have to ask myself, like, why is it that you would never break a commitment to your sister or your son or your significant other, but you would break a commitment to yourself, right? So I think that by making those small commitments to ourselves, it makes us more inclined to keep those. Even if the rest of our eating plan goes off track, you're still going to keep your commitment. And over time, as you create new commitments, it just becomes a part of your life and a part of your plan, and then you'll start to see weight loss as a result. So I'll give you some more specific examples. For me, the first commitment that I made when I was trying to lose weight was to eliminate junk, right? So junk is, some people call it eating clean, or however you want to phrase it. But for me, it was really not eating processed foods. So when I made that commitment, that meant I couldn't pick up, a piece of cake or, from the grocery store, or I couldn't have chips. But it didn't mean that I couldn't make something at home that was, within my plan, that I knew exactly what was in it, that didn't have artificial sweeteners, that didn't have artificial flavoring. So it got me into the habit of these things that I want, even though they're not quote unquote on my plan or great and helpful for me. They're still things that I want, but they're not violating my commitment of putting junk into my body. So for me, junk was anything that I didn't know what it was, that, it just didn't resonate with me as being something that I should be putting in my body. So if I read ingredients and those ingredients were not ingredients that I recognized, then that's not something that I was going to eat. And that was a commitment that I made to myself. And when I made that commitment, I wasn't depriving myself because I could still come home and use, coconut sugar to make myself, some sort of a sweet. That's when I got into doing like chocolate pudding using cacao and avocados, um, or making like a raw apple pie that I was completely surprised that that would taste the way that it did. It took more effort, of course, but I deserve the effort and you deserve the effort. So it's in making those kind of commitments. So for me, eliminating the crap, that was a big commitment. And I saw a big, huge shift for myself. I also made a commitment as it related to getting in vegetables. So, everybody's commitment level is going to be different, but make sure that you're making a commitment that you know that you can uphold, that you know that you can keep. So maybe your commitment would be, I don't know, every day I'm going to eat a half a pound of greens. I mean, if that's where you are in your journey, then you make that commitment and you do it. For me, it was 2 pounds of vegetables a day. That meant that I could do them however, if it was in a smoothie, if it was sauteed, if it was raw in a salad, it didn't matter. And some days, to be honest, I just didn't feel like chomping forever. Like to eat a very large salad is time consuming and can be quite boring. But that meant that in that evening, if I hadn't had my vegetable intake in some way, then I had to juice them to get in my vegetables. So just making a commitment to yourself, whatever that commitment is. I mean, some people it's a physical commitment, it's working out or it's whatever. But as you make those commitments, then they just become a part of your lifestyle. I know when I look back to who I was and what my habits were before I lost the weight till now, it's like I can't even imagine living that life anymore. Like, and I'm surprised that I'm saying that. So, um, I don't know. My life is just so different that the things that I indulged in and the things that were like treats to me now, I don't even desire them. And I thought people were crazy when they said that. I never thought that that would be me, but I think it was because I made those incremental changes based on commitments. So just make some commitments, no matter how small, as long as you keep them. Keep your commitments for about 3 weeks. By then, you'll see how they fit into your lifestyle. Once they become a part of your lifestyle, make a new commitment and go forward. I mean, in the background, you'll still have your diet plan or whatever you're doing, but those commitments mean that even if you stray from that plan, that you're going to keep the commitment because you made it to yourself and you deserve it. Um, so my number one tip, this is like above all, is to truly have the desire to lose the weight. And when I talk about desire, I'm talking about desire on a spiritual level. Like, even if it's around vanity, like, why do you want to lose the weight? Who do you want to become when you're smaller? For me, I had my son as a mature mom. In medical terms, I didn't feel like I was old when I had my son, but according to the doctors, I was old when I had my son. And so I just couldn't see myself being a mature mom. And then I was a single mom. I had just gone through a divorce that was just, a heartbreaking divorce. So here I am, divorced, never thought I'd be divorced, never thought I'd be a single mom, mature, according to the doctors. And so I just couldn't see that for myself or for my son. Like, so now I'm supposed to be a divorced, single, fat mom. And not that there's anything wrong with any of those things. Like, it was just that it didn't coincide with my spirit. It didn't feel like who I was supposed to be. Like, I saw people all the time who were way bigger than I was, but they were happy and vibrant, and their spirit was still shining through. I was raised by a single mom. I know a lot of single moms. I know moms who have chosen to be single moms, and they're still vibrant and happy and, living their lives. So it wasn't that any of those things were negative in a sense, but for me, being overweight, a single mom, it just didn't fit with who I thought I wanted to be. So I had to define, like, who do I want to be? Like, from from my career, like, health coaching is a second career for me, um, and it's something that I didn't even think about doing. It just naturally occurred as I became the person that I envisioned I wanted to be once I lost the weight. So what I think is one of the best things to do when you're considering this tip is to sit down and think about who you want to become when the weight is gone, and then be her. Because you're not going to change just because the weight is gone. Like, when the weight is gone, you'll just be a skinnier you, and you'll think, like, okay, what was the big deal here, right? Because you're still the same person. So you have to think about, in addition to the weight, because we all know when we're trying to lose the weight that it's like, it's not about the weight, it's not about the food. We hear it from everybody. But in fact, it isn't. So who do you want to be once you lose the weight? And once you decide who you want to be, then become that person. So for me, um, I wanted to go into my son's preschool class and sit on those tiny little chairs with the other young moms, and not feel like I was just, bubbling over it. And I didn't want to feel like I didn't have enough energy to be his mom, or that, I would suffer health consequences that he would have to manage. So part of it was, I just wanted to be a fit mom. I wanted to be a fit, energetic mom, right? That was part of the identity that I wanted to attain. But then I also wanted to be desirable again. I wanted to date. I wanted to get married again. I wanted to be who I was prior to gaining the weight, because I wasn't always overweight. So there was a sense of trying to regain who I was, and it wasn't like I wanted to go, back to my 20s, or be a different person. I just wanted to be my best self, and I had to define what that best self was. And so that's my biggest tip: is define who your best self is. And when I say define this, I mean have a vision in your mind of, what do you look like when all of this is done? What outfit are you wearing? Where are you going? Like, that night when you finally feel like, yes, I did it, I reached my goal. What does that outfit look like? Where are you going? Who are you going with? When you get there, what are you guys talking about? What did you do earlier that day? Did you have a new hobby? Did you leave the gym? Did you, like, who were you that entire day, that entire weekend, whatever that dream is, that desire is that's in you that says, I want to lose this weight. And this is just your desire. So it could be as frivolous as you want it to be, or it could be as deep as you want it to be. It could be, I am rocking this hot outfit and I go to pick up my child from school, and this person who I knew from high school walks past and sees me and I look hot. It could be that simple, or it could be that you're spiritually centered, and you go to a nice dinner with your new husband or wife or whatever, um, and what you guys are talking about, and you're dreaming and you're creating a new life. It could be that you've started a new business. I don't know. Desires are endless, but it's important to know what your desires are and to have them very, very clear in your mind. So when you think about veering off your plan, or when you're thinking about developing a plan, that you have that desire clear. So, like, for me, I want to be sitting in one of those little tiny preschool chairs and feel like I'm strong enough and I'm not breaking the chair and I'm not bubbling over it. And then I'm able to leave that situation in a preschool and then go to this adult life that includes other adults, that's fulfilling and happy, and all of those things. But I had that very clear in my mind. And I think that did two things. Number one, it made me stick to my plan because I knew where I was going. And number two, it made me fulfill a lot of my desires that had absolutely nothing to do with weight. Because as I continued to dream and to meditate and to pray about being that woman, I realized that I was that woman. I just had to right size my body, right? And make my habits and my mind match her. So those are my top 3 tips. This video is much longer than I expected it to be. Like I said before, I've been taking from the community, watching videos over the years, and I'm glad that I now have something to kind of give back. So I like to answer questions. Again, I am a health coach. I've written a book on weight loss, and I really want to just give information because I know a lot about health and fitness. I have to do the disclaimer and say that I am not a doctor. I am not a dietitian. I don't prescribe anything, and I never recommend that people go against their medical professionals. But I do offer recommendations and support on how to reach your health and weight loss goals. So if you have questions, you can hit me up in the comments. I'll leave my email address there as well as the Amazon link to my book. And I am very glad to be on this side of the community, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.